Tantalus Entertainment presents the Killer Score Podcast.
Hello, you are listening, of course, to the newest episode. Well, for us at least. If you're watching this in the future, it's not. But the newest episode of the Killer Score Podcast, where I, your host, Daulton Morrison, along with my hosts, Erin Murray and Rich Eckert, cover all sorts of films that have a cult following with very strong soundtracks and compositional work we love to talk about. I want to start off this podcast by saying thank you to all of our listeners out there. For those unaware, we recently did a fundraiser for a women's shelter here in Jersey, and we were able to, secure over the amount we asked for of funding for our initial goal. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, and between the, thank you so much for everyone who donated to the GoFundMe. Thank you to everyone who also made cash donations. Between cash donations and the GoFundMe, we made over $500. So thank you so much. And of course, the shelters that we will be donating to will be very grateful for all of that.
Yes, indeed. I cannot thank you enough. None of us can thank you enough for putting us over the line and beyond for our goals. Rest assured that every dollar is going to help a lot of people, and we will see to it that it's put to good use. I'm honestly speechless at how much success we've had thanks to all of you. Thank you so much.
Right, and for any of our Jersey or close area fans, if you would like to support Miss Murray here's business, she will be doing a craft show at the Shawnee High School on, what was it?
December 12th.
On December 12th. I will most likely be there as well to help out just around with the things. I am, of course, your host, Daulton Morrison. I've mentioned before where you can find me, and I will try to leave links into the description to my various channels, which you can follow me on and see some other content from me and the like. Gonna pass it off.
Hi, I'm Erin Murray. As we mentioned, I am from Witch and Crafts, and we'll have links in the description for that. I'm one of the co-hosts here as well. And yeah, we're gonna be doing a craft show December 12th, Shawnee High School in Medford or Marlton? Medford, New Jersey.
Co-host number 2 here, Richard Eckert with Richard's Rad Voices. Find me on YouTube under simply Richard Eckert, or follow me on Twitter at Richard F. Eckert. I've got a lot of projects in the works, kind of a slow burn due to obligations to this podcast and outside factors, but you will be hearing my dulcet tones along with those of our ringleader, Daulton Morrison, here in a lot of those projects coming soon. Mm-hmm. But before we ramble on about our own endeavors, let's talk about how Erin here is a complete monster who wants to feed on my tears.
Okay, so for context, the movie that we're doing this week is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's a movie that I love. Richie's seen it before, and it's a tearjerker of a movie, but it's one of my favorites. Should I go on with the reason why I chose this movie?
Yes, please, you absolute monster.
So there's several reasons why I chose this movie. One, the soundtrack is very good. It's actually, a lot of it is like ambient sounds from what I remember. The guy who did the soundtracks, the composer, let me bring it up real quick because I'm blanking on his name right now. But why is it showing Jim Carrey's filmography on my phone? Anyway, Jim Carrey is actually the star in this movie. That's why it's going on. That's why it's showing Jim Carrey on my phone.
Wow, it is taking some lovely turns there, Wikipedia.
Yeah, Wikipedia is being weird. Anyway. So the soundtrack is done by John Bryan, who has been known to do some production work on artists such as some indie acts such as Of Montreal, which is actually a really good band if you haven't listened to them. Also doing production work for Amy Mann, Love Jones, and Fiona Apple, which is one that these two know.
Yeah.
And also, surprisingly, Kanye West. Yeah, he did some production for Kanye.
I miss the old Kanye.
Old Kanye, I'm pretty sure. What else? Sorry, I should have done more research into this.
I know for a fact that he did the music for Punch Drunk Love. Underrated favorite of mine, if I want to be honest. I love that movie.
That's the Paul Thomas Anderson one?
Yeah, the one with Adam Sandler.
Oh, yeah, it's one of his first dramatic forays, from what I remember.
Yep. And as we're preparing the information that I had neglected to bring up on my own tabs, I just wanted to go over my own history with this movie. I remember seeing this late high school, early college, thanks to going through a bit of a family-induced Charlie Kaufman phase. My brother was really into his stuff like adaptation, and he wrote the screenplay for this movie, and after watching it, I put it on a list of movies that I considered the best ones that I never want to see again.
Yeah, some other movies that I know that are the best movies you never want to see again. One of them being the Korean version of Old Boy.
Yep, that's a fair candidate.
What do you mean the Korean version?
The original.
The original.
What do you mean? There's only one version of Old Boy.
No.
They never did anything else with Old Boy. There was just that one really good Bong Joon-ho movie.
I thought they did a
Park
remake.
Chan-wook. What?
I thought they did a remake, an American remake.
I'm
No
going
idea
to
what
have
you're
to.
talking about.
I'm gonna have to reduce the levels on that laughter.
That's so weird. Spike Jonze definitely never did a remake that complete.
Spike Lee.
Spike Lee definitely never did a remake that completely missed the point.
For those currently not seeing it, our lovely ringleader here appears to be trying to blow up the room with his mind at the moment.
Yeah, I have no idea what these guys are going on about. There's just that one really good version of Old Boy.
Okay.
Back to Eternal Sunshine. So the reason I chose this movie is, as I said, it's one of my favorite movies. The soundtrack is full of really good ambient music, and it uses something you don't see a lot in movies that would be considered romance movies, which is non-linear narration in a sci-fi format. So as some of you who are familiar with Eternal Sunshine, basically the plot of it is, can be summed up in one sentence. If you could erase someone from your memory, would you? And it's something that I've thought about with myself. Like, for example, this movie was introduced to me by my ex-boyfriend, who we don't talk about.
Boo.
That guy sucks.
That guy sucks. Yeah, that's an understatement. But anyway, but the thing is, it's one of those things where when I think about it, it's like, if I could erase him from my memory, sometimes I wish I would. But other times I'm just like, then I wouldn't have gotten into some of the music that I love, some of the movies that I love, because he introduced me to them. For example, I got into Radiohead through my ex.
So I guess it's at this point that I'm going to warn our viewers that this movie is going to be a doozy. It's got some heavy themes in it, and due to the personal nature of how it resonated with me and Erin in particular, we're going to try and keep it as light as possible, but strap yourselves in, because this one's probably going to get real hard ending.
All aboard the fun train, it sounds like. Jeez.
I'll try to keep it a bit more lighthearted than that.
Try.
One of the things is that up until the point where this movie came out, in I believe 2003 or 2004, 2004. Jim Carrey had mostly been doing comedic acting, with the exception of The Truman Show, which came out in 1998.
And I believe Man on the Moon.
Yeah, I think so.
And Man on the Moon. But at that point, he had done some serious roles, but many people still looked at him as a comedic actor.
Yeah, and you could really get the idea that for a while there, especially in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, he was kind of trying to shake that image a little bit. Because even aside from that, he was doing films that were essentially like satires or even deconstructions of the type of films he did. Famously, The Cable Guy is essentially a deconstruction of Jim Carrey films as a whole.
And another thing is that this movie came out the same year, or I believe the year after, another one of his big comedies came out, Bruce Almighty.
Which was a bit on the heavier end of things, and had a similar tone to stuff like The Truman Show, wherein it started out light and wacky, but took a turn for the
increasingly dark,
and philosophical.
The performances in this movie are fantastic. From, of course, Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet as the lead couple, Joel and Clementine. There's also supporting roles, by Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, Elijah Wood.
All of which knock it out of the friggin' park.
They do. And it's funny, because when you look at the cover of it, it says a smart, sexy, and seriously funny comedy.
Sexy?
There's some sex scenes in it.
Oh, okay.
But it's not so much a comedy as it is just a straight-up sci-fi romance, which is another thing that doesn't really get utilized as much. I mean, like, you see it more often ever since certain things like Outlander has gotten huge. You see a lot more like time travel romance kind of things.
Yeah, like, I mean, you could argue Brazil is kind of one.
Kinda, but that takes...
That's also very dark.
It is very dark. It is very dark.
It makes this movie look like a Disney film, honestly, Brazil. That is,
yeah,
deeply...
I watched that in high school.
That is a deeply cynical movie.
Oh, definitely. Another thing I wanted to mention about this movie is that it's also kind of a deconstruction of the manic pixie dream girl trope, which we'll see later.
Yep.
Because the character of Clementine even distinctly states, I'm just a fucked up girl looking for my own peace of mind, don't give me yours. Because when you see her first, you just think, oh, this is another one manic pixie dream girl because she has like blue and pink and whatever hair.
Nope.
But she isn't.
Nope. Meet the mother of Ramona Flowers, which, speaking of all this, I think it's pretty pertinent to note that this is one of those rare movies wherein Daulton is going to be introduced of a film by me and Erin.
Yeah, and I was just double checking something. It is kind of interesting that this is like one of the big deconstruction of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl things, because like this also came out the same year. Like, this was 2004, right?
2004.
Yeah, also came out the same year as like Garden State, which you could argue also fills that trope.
Yep.
And afterwards, you definitely started to see deconstructive works of Manic Pixie Dream Girl stuff being much more common than just straightforward Manic Pixie Dream Girl narratives.
Yeah, because the term Manic Pixie Dream Girl was actually created by a film journalist whose name I can't remember at the moment. But she stated that the character of, I believe, Kirsten Dunst's character in Elizabethtown is what kicked off the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. For those of you who are unaware, it's the trope of a female character who solely exists to help a male character because she's quirky and weird, to help him through some kind of struggle or some kind of problems he's having.
Typically, the male lead in question is a socially awkward and or moody and
misanthropic.
Misanthropic curmudgeon who is in need of some blithe spirit who comes in and makes everything better.
It's like, come on, listen to this album. It changed my life. And it's always like some really indie, quirky kind of album. Like, I mean, look at look at a good amount of Zooey Deschanel's roles have been quoted to be Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Although it's run back deeper than even that. Even though that's been a trend among, like, the indie films of the last couple decades, it's also been a thing in 80s films. The first awful example that comes to mind is Xanadu.
Oh, God.
Because the muse in that movie
is quite literally a muse.
Yes, and she's coming in she's coming into the plot for the service of one of the most insufferable artiste characters that anyone will ever see. Have you seen Xanadu?
No, I have
No.
not. You know, I do find it funny that you guys brought up Zooey Deschanel, because afterwards it seemed like her filmography deliberately shifted away from that, or doing deconstructions of it, particularly Yes Man, which also stars Jim Carrey, has him be essentially a manic pixie dream boy, essentially, for the Zooey Deschanel character, which causes rifts and problems with their relationship. And also, famously, 500 Days of Summer,
Oh yeah.
Yep.
which is, honestly, it's a pretty divisive film,
Yeah.
but and it is heavy-handed, but I honestly kind of like it.
Yeah, it's earnest.
It's got very good performance, very good earlier performance from Chloe Grace Moretz. She does a lot to bring out the more comedy of this more dramatic film by like pointing out a lot of the cliche tropes and like, you know, pointing out how did you ever think this was going to work out when you two are so fundamentally different people. And that film's just got really good cinematography, which is part of the reason I appreciate it.
Yeah, it does.
And speaking of cinematography, I love the cinematography in this movie. They use a lot of forced perspective to create different scenes. Another thing that they used, which was for the frustration of a lot of the crew and the cast, was using available light in most of the movie. For those of you who are unaware, available light is basically using, instead of using light from the production crew, it's like we're going to use whatever light we have available. Let it be sunlight, let it be a lamp in the corner,
Street
stuff like
lights.
that. Street lights, that kind of thing.
Speaking as a communication graduate who has had a hand in many student films, I can tell you that this technique is a pain in the ass.
It's an absolute nightmare, and this is coming from someone who did student films in high school.
Yeah, the only like time where using natural light is like super easy is if you're filming in a place that's very stark. Like if you're filming in like you know, let's say the Netherlands, you know, if you're filming in the snow there, that's going to be easier to film with natural light. Everything's very stark.
While this movie takes place in and around New York City, mostly in the winter.
Yeah.
The fact that the issues are not as apparent as they were present, like behind the scenes, the fact that they're not on screen and you can't see the cracks speaks volumes about how hard they must have worked to iron that out, because oh boy, the available light in New York makes a nightmare into a night terror.
Yeah, and another thing is that, speaking of, they actually filmed the majority of the movie in and around New York. They built very few sets, from what I was able to tell, like from what I was able to read. One of them, they actually used I believe they used an old Navy base, like a retired Navy base, to create some sets, which was, I'm just like, huh, okay, kind of an odd thing. But the one thing I do love about films that are specifically filmed in New York is that they don't try to do a lot of them don't try to do all the glitz and glamour of like, oh, this is all New York. This is like the Empire State Building, Radio City Music Hall. It's like, no, it's just a city where people live.
Yeah, because I don't think this is set specifically in New York City, is it? I think
It is.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, but a lot of it is set in like Staten Island and Queens.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Long Island.
For some reason, I always thought, even though this was a New York movie, it'd be set outside of the city itself, like Buffalo for some reason. I don't know why.
No. A lot of it's filmed and set in Montauk, which is like the absolute tip of Long Island. It's set, I believe, I think it was mostly filmed in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island, as opposed to being filmed on Manhattan, because Manhattan would be a nightmare to film in, no matter what.
So, I believe that with the scene set and Daulton thoroughly prepared for all the angles of this movie, we should probably pop that Blu-ray in and get ourselves together.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we're back. We just watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and of course this is a movie that I love, but I want to hear your guys' take. Daulton, since you haven't seen this movie, how about you go first?
That was a really weird comedy. I wasn't sure when I was supposed to laugh or not. I mean, it's Jim Carrey. You're supposed to laugh. Okay.
Oh my god.
All right.
You had to open on that.
Yeah. In all seriousness, though, this movie, oh god, people are gonna hate me. Not because I don't like it. I love it. The reason I'm saying people are gonna hate me is because I want to go on a bunch of philosophical discussions and tangents about this film. But
oh my god.
I'll save that for if I decide to ever do like a video of it, on this, like the philosophy behind Eternal Sunshine.
I feel like the video's been done a million times.
Probably, but I'll check if it hasn't. I kind of want to do that because there's, even aside from that,
there's a lot going on.
there's,
There are a bunch, but I wouldn't mind seeing yours. Don't worry.
If you're a doctor, maybe don't watch this movie. I'd love to see an actual doctor's take on this film because there's so much HIPAA violations in this film.
They'd have to watch the movie like this the whole way through.
Yeah.
Just listening to audio.
Yeah, no, this movie was very intriguing, very enthralling. As for like the central concept of the film, I'm gonna say a hard no, just because our trauma, our negative experiences have as much of an impact in forming who we are and helping us grow as people as our positive experiences do. So even if it was like a really painful breakup, I don't think I could erase my memories of a person.
I feel the same way. Not so much as like, because I kind of hate the statement "trauma helps you build as a person," because trauma fucking sucks.
It does. It does. I just mean like in the case of this film, for example, like you can see that the characters are actually kind of worse off as people by having their memories erased, because like they clearly have like feelings and they don't know why.
Yeah.
And like that kind of shit would drive a person insane.
Yeah.
Like, why am I just like why do I have like a weird gap in why do I have all these weird gaps in my head? Like,
yeah.
Why do I feel weird like when I hear a certain song or I hear a certain turn of phrase?
Yeah, I've actually heard some people who have not through like obviously wiping their memory, but there's a thing in psychiatry called fugue states, where a memory ends up being like locked away or almost forgotten just because it's too painful to remember.
Yeah.
And
It's like a repressed memory?
like a repressed memory, basically. Another term for fugue states can also mean like where you basically your memory just blanks for whatever reason and like waking up places where you didn't fall asleep. But a good example is obviously people who've gone through trauma and have like repressed those memories.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I was thinking about was how certain things will make you think of certain things, but you're like certain memories, but you're not sure why, and there's just kind of like a blank there.
Yeah. And I wasn't necessarily trying to say that trauma builds character per se. I was more trying to say like when you fuck up, you can use your fuck ups to learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
yeah,
like
it's a learning experience.
if you get rid of your fuck ups, you're gonna fuck up again.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the experience of the fuck up. It's like if you're riding your bike
and you don't know what
and you erase the memory of like all the times you screwed up falling down on your bike, when you get back on that bike, you're gonna fall because you don't remember how to catch yourself.
Yeah, and before I hand this over to Richie, a good way, as you mentioned, falling a bike is, I recently got back into ice skating. So one of the things I had to remember is I am going to fall. It's just a part of learning. Now, if I didn't remember how to fall and how to get back up from doing it when I was a kid, I'd be a completely different person. I'm gonna hand this over to Richie now because he's been wanting to speak for like 3 minutes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to rush you, but I have been kind of silent a bit. Yeah. So, speaking as one who is coming back from this movie after a couple of years of seeing it the first time, I still love it. I'm still on the edge of my seat all the time, thanks to the conflicts that it sets up between Joel and Clementine, and the whole implementation of that memory erasing process, and the cinematography, and also due to the philosophical conceit that you cannot erase things just because they were painful, and you'll be worse off for them in the end. And ultimately, it's a self-defeating process to force yourself to learn the same lessons over and over again.
Oh, absolutely. Continue.
Sorry, that's fine. But, I remember being just completely taken aback by a whole bunch of scenes in this movie, the library ones in particular, where...
the bookstore ones?
Yeah, the bookstore ones, where Clementine basically sums up why Joel's perception of her is so fucked.
Mm-hmm.
And that plays into what Erin had said earlier about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl deconstruction, and how trying to find your missing piece in a relationship is kind of inherently screwed up and isn't a healthy view of human relationships in the slightest.
Oh, absolutely. Well, absolutely not. But one of the things that I was going to mention is if you're looking for, as Clementine says in the movie, if you're looking for someone to complete you, or like looking for someone to get into a relationship with like trying to find someone who's trying to get in relationships with someone you see as not a person but a concept, you're not looking for the right relationship.
You're not looking for a person either, which is the impetus for so many conflicts in this movie, beyond the one that starts off this whole string. And I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say that Joel and Clem are far from the only ones caught in this web, which made for a lot of heavy moments, to be sure, but also some amusing ones, witnessing Daulton's reactions to seeing them for the first time.
Yeah, what can I say? Medical incompetence and medical, like, unethical behavior is, like, one of those things that always, like, drives me insane whenever I see it on film. I don't know why. I don't work in the medical field. Maybe it's just because I've, like, had a lot of, like, family and friends who have had to deal with medical incompetence that when I see it, it's like, you know, it's...
You see, I almost was just as much of a monster as these two. Well, because they could see me. On one hand, these two were clearly seeing me, like, multiple moments. Like, the moment out in the middle of the ice had me with my head in my hands. Like, I was getting wet eyes over that. But when Daulton was describing the whole Hippocratic Oath violations and stuff,
Yeah.
I was so tempted to just...
You have no idea!
No. I already did that. I said that, but at one point I was planning to ambush you in the middle of your facial expressions and just shout from the side, "Nerd!"
We're still gonna have to cut that down because it looks really loud in the audio either way.
I even turned the mic away for that, too.
Yeah, it's whatever.
I'll fix that.
Yeah, no, this was a very interesting film. Filling gaps is clearly a theme in this film. Like, they kind of make it pretty obvious for the audience, but that's fine. They do it in really subtle ways too.
Quick too.
Yeah, the whole name of the company is literally like lacuna means a missing gap or something that's just not there. In Italian, it actually means memory lapse.
Mm-hmm.
The whole company that does the procedure that the film is centered around is the name is based around making a gap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very subtle thing, but the company van is missing the C.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
Oh, I
showed
missed
me, like,
that
5
too.
times.
So it shows you that the company itself is not perfect, that the company is disjointed, and that there's gaps of, like competency or even like ethicalcy in the company. And also kind of brilliant. I like that they chose the C, Clementine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And something I'm gonna gush about a lot in this recap is Charlie Kaufman's writing for this.
Mhm.
Because not only is he great at nonlinear and unconventional narratives, see future candidate adaptation for proof positive of this,
Yeah.
but he's also good at something Daulton alluded to, which is being on the nose, but just on the nose enough about things. I'm probably going to get murdered for my obligatory bashing of the ham-fisted symbolism of the likes of Joss Whedon, but
no, continue, Richie. You said obligatory. I believe that's what you were trying to say, correct?
piss off. But, like, a writer like Joss Whedon is one of those writers that wants to be stealthy and subliminal with his narration or narrative voice, but is too focused on that wink that to be able to deliver. Charlie Kaufman is similarly on the nose, but in the flashback scenes in particular, he's so quick about getting the symbolism out of the way that you don't really notice it. It's like this weird middle ground between letting scenes play out as long as possible and being quick and snappy enough that it doesn't feel like he's beating you over the head with things.
Yeah, honestly, the only good thing Joss Whedon has ever done is make it so that, like, television networks stopped, like, taking money to do very special episodes because, like, he intentionally kiboshed, like, a very special episode of Buffy so poorly that, like, on purpose.
You know what? I'll give him that one.
Yeah, like, literally, where it's like, at the end, what did we learn here? Beer is good, just don't drink evil magic beer. Yeah, exactly.
I'll give that episode credit. That was good, but, you know...
They intentionally wrote a stupid and bad episode.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
at the end was like, wow, don't do the stupid thing, and you'll be fine.
Also, Charlie Kaufman knows how to write more than one character type, so that friggin' helps.
Yeah, that definitely helps. No, yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff about this film that I could definitely gush about, that at the same time I'm like, I don't want to spoil things very much.
The editing is one of those things that I thought was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yes.
Because, spoiler alert, as Joel's memory begins to fade, so does his surroundings.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing technique.
I like how sparse the soundtrack is. It's very minimalist. The sound design is very, like, decisive, I want to say. Precise.
Yeah. It relies more on ambience than its score, which, to be fair, is still great.
And a lot of soft piano work. Too.
Yeah.
A lot of soft piano work, but when the piano comes on, it's not hitting It's not hitting minor keys until you get the mood. It's letting...
It does it very lightly.
Mm-hmm.
It's very subdued.
Yeah.
And, one thing I wanted to talk about as far as the editing goes is this movie's absolutely spot on use of cuts.
Oh yeah.
Like, the transitions in this are very quick to hammer home the point of erased memories and open gaps in cognition. So there's no fades, there's no overt psychedelic effects.
Well, there's one fade in the movie, but it's
One.
technically there's two, but it's intentional.
I do like the fact too, by the way, that one thing I meant to bring up earlier is I like how obviously we could be viewing distorted memories because the memory isn't perfect, but I do like how the arguments in this film feel incredibly real.
Oh yeah.
Like, it really gets how arguments can just be so sudden and set off over like the weirdest turns of phrases or even just like
Tones of voice,
and I really appreciate that.
Speaking as someone with painful personal experience as well, this movie gets how anger can make you say the stupidest, most out of character things. Joel, in particular, goes from being pretty meek and unassuming to being pretty thoughtless and nasty when he's arguing with Clementine, and you get it. It's, I mean, yeah, you want to punch him in the face, but if you're me, you're not thinking, oh, I want to punch Joel. You're thinking, oh, but I've been him.
Yeah. You're thinking, dude, come on.
Yeah, because there's one point in the movie that stuck out to me that I remembered from watching the movie previously, was the one scene where Clementine comes home drunk and she's like, oh yeah, I wrecked the car, I'm drunk. But Joel says to her is just something along the lines of, you went out and fucked someone, well, you went out and had sex with someone because that's how you get people to like you.
And dead silence, followed by Clem just stunned, walking out of the...
grabbing her things and running out, basically.
Yeah, like, you don't get much time for it to really sink in either. She's just like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really dig the fact, by the way, that, like, when we see these arguments and stuff, they get that arguments often involve, like, in-jokes or, like, weird turns of phrases, and that when you're stuck in an argument between two people and you're just kind of there, people will say some funny shit, but you will be, like, just kind of, like, aghast that you're there and won't react, really. Because, like, I was thinking, like, the writing for these arguments is very realistic, and some of the things they're saying are actually pretty funny. Like, I can't remember, but Clementine said some, like, pretty funny stuff in their argument.
Dark stuff.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, that's the one I was thinking. Like, I hate how you talk, wino, I hate how you talk like someone from the 50s. Like, that's funny. But in the context of the scene, it's not funny, and you're just kind of awkwardly sitting there. Like, you get to see Joel be in the same situation when David Cross's character and his wife are arguing, and, like, it gets the feeling of being stuck there in an argument between two people who know each other intimately, and how, like, you kind of want to laugh, but you know you shouldn't because you're just gonna make things worse.
Yeah, it's like when, say you have two friends and they're a couple and they're arguing and you're just sitting there awkwardly and you kind of want to laugh at some of the stuff they're saying, but you know you shouldn't.
You know, that's hilarious, because there were a couple of moments among us where Daulton was having the aforementioned existential crises, seeing the craziness unfold, and, like, at one point, there was a moment where it cut back to the doctors doing the procedure. Mark Ruffalo's looking like he's got the "my God, what have I done" face, and I'm immersed, and Daulton looks at me and Erin, who are just watching this,
Like,
and
watching the movie so intently.
and he goes, well, I'm gonna hand in my 2 weeks. Like, speaking from his perspective, and I was just laughing like the Joker.
Yeah, I like to voice my personal thoughts and experiences when I'm watching films sometimes, and that just popped in my head. Like, that's all I was thinking. Is I was like, if I was Mark Ruffalo's situation, I'd be like, hey, so yeah, I think I'm gonna turn in my resignation. I don't know if I feel comfortable with this.
You see, that is my second favorite Daulton bit of commentary, and because I'm an asshole, my first favorite is, of course, going to be your Tom Servo breakdown at the end of Explorers.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That is entertaining right there. But no, this is definitely good. I just want to say, like, I loved David Cross's minimal stuff in this. David Cross is great in, like, anything he appears in, though.
Oh, yeah.
He always steals the show in the scene, even if he's, like, got a minor part.
We gotta send him... There are not enough apology cards in the world for him to have endured the first 3 Alvin and the Chipmunks movies.
Oh, and he hated those movies. He was like someone even said, like, why did you do those? And he's like, I needed money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it got to the point where they got to the road trip, you know, the 4th one that thought it could beat Star Wars.
I'm just, like, wondering, too, like, you got to think, like, David Cross probably looked at Jason Lee when he announced he was leaving, and he was like, are you fucking kidding me? You're leaving me with this?
Jason
I have to take over?
David! I can't scream.
Jason!
Shut up.
Mario. Cheryl. If you can find it, there's a whole video on YouTube of it's just a compilation of different people shouting different names in video games, and it's glorious. If you can find it, please send us a link, because I lost the video years ago.
Snake!
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
You know what? I'm gonna try again, because...
Raiden!
I'm gonna try my best liquid. Snake! How's that?
That was good. That was
Good.
good.
Anyway,
Back to the movie.
We were talking about a movie?
surprise, surprise, killer score goes to different places. So back to the editing. The
Surprise, we took fun little detours.
That's the fun of it. But the cuts in this movie are so good. I didn't forget the one fade, but I wanted to talk a lot about the cuts because lesser movies would be too erratic with the cuts. Case in point, the average Michael Bay action movie. But here they're used to really sneak up on you and blindside you with the memory erasure scenes. You'll get a shot that hangs on Joel and Clementine looking back, concerned at each other, like in the scenes where Joel is trying to save Clem from being erased and they're running through places. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly you're in another scene. You're in another part of Joel's life entirely.
Yeah, like, there's scenes where they're, like, running through Brooklyn or stuck at a train station or running through the doctor's office or their apartment. And it just cuts together so cleanly. And it also kind of takes you a little bit off guard. It doesn't do anything... It's not, like, completely jarring, not like, oh my god, what just happened? But it's still... the way that it's shot and the way that it's cut is done so well. If you can find... The editor's name is... I think it's it's Icelandic, so cut me a break if I pronounce this wrong. Valdis Óskarsdóttir. Yeah, I know I pronounced that wrong. But she's done some other she's done quite a few other movies, both in and out of Iceland, of course. She did Eternal Sunshine. She made her director's debut in Iceland.
You see, that pronunciation is still better than mine because I would have just evolved into Swedish chef nonsense.
Oh, jeez.
Bork.
Yeah, one of the other things that I saw that was very interesting about the editing is that I looked at some of the others, some of the other movies that this editor has done. Here we are. Valdez Oscar's daughter. I can't pronounce it.
She's editor.
Shut up. But she's done, another one that some people would know is Les Mis, not the Tom Hooper one that sucked, but she was an editor in the 1998 adaptation of the book, not the musical.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's all I had to add there.
Yeah, like, a lot of her movies are Icelandic, because that's her home country. But she's also done, oh yeah, Lost River, the Ryan Gosling movie.
Yeah.
The one where he directed.
Yeah, that tracks.
I actually don't know that one.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Because you know a lot about Ryan Gosling movies. Kinda.
He's a great actor.
He is a great actor.
Like, it's amazing how you expect this.
Versatile.
Yeah, this really. He was so clean cut for a while too. You think, oh, here comes another model.
Ryan Gosling model romance movie, and then you watch movies like The Nice Guys, and you're like,
The Nice Guys, Blade Runner.
Drive is what put him on the map, basically.
as a serious actor.
As like a serious actor, you know.
Because before that, he did movies like The Notebook.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, is he ever good in Drive?
And he's great in The Nice Guys. That movie is hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Great in Blade Runner too.
Yeah, and that's a hard part.
That's a very difficult part to
That is a difficult
get into.
role, because it's like, you have to play someone who's like supposed to be emotionless, but is like coming to grips with the fact that they do have emotions and isn't even sure what is real in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's my favorite performance from him for that reason.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it's very subdued, which is why it makes the moments where like there's explosive amounts of like emotion like all the more like impactful.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty. Like,
Yeah.
you could tell there was a lot of parallels. But this movie is... Can we talk about the acting too? Because that is great. Jim Carrey has always been one that I've loved for his passion and his versatility. Like, it doesn't matter how half-hearted the effort is on everyone else's part, he's gonna put his all into stuff. I don't even like that CG Christmas Carol, and I cannot deny he was just a great Scrooge.
Yeah, he's like a guy who like goes so hard in to the point that like it can be very uncomfortable for some people. Like,
Yeah.
if you watch behind the scenes stuff from like Man on the Moon, like there's a bunch of times where like people are just like, oh boy,
It's like, I don't want to work with him. He's getting late. I don't want to be here.
He's freaking out again.
And then, that's not even getting into the whole Grinch filming process. That makeup is so oppressive.
He literally had to undergo CIA torture to be ready to play the
He had to go through, as he described it, he had to do heavy amounts of meditation. Like,
he literally had to be tortured by the CIA to be prepared for that role.
yeah.
Which is like, dude, you're playing the fucking Grinch.
Yeah.
And there's...
This is like, I think back to the Laurence Olivier thing of like, you know, oh man, I'm Dustin Hoffman. I like to get that properly tired look. I spent 3 days up without sleeping, and Laurence Olivier just going, my dear boy, have you tried acting? It's like, it's like, buddy, like, I would go method sometimes when I was on stage, but it would just be like a very small amount.
Like acting like your character?
Yeah, like I would
Surface.
talk like that before I go on stage and like get into that mindset. So I'm like doing that. I would kind of do what because this goes to show you how much of a fucking weirdo I am. One of my biggest acting inspirations is Bela Lugosi, and I would take some of like his acting tips that he would use to get in character on stage.
A vampire acting like a vampire.
You know, we keep in touch with our kind. The thing is, I never go that full in, or I don't understand people who go that full in, because I'm like, isn't that tiring? Isn't that exhausting?
I think one of the worst. Yeah, just act. One of the worst examples is when, besides obviously one of the best and worst examples of method acting or anything Daniel Day-Lewis does.
Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis, Christian Bale,
and Heath Ledger doing the Joker, which, yeah, let's not touch that one.
yeah.
Because even Jack Nicholson is just like, I don't get these kids. Why are they going that far?
Like Jim Carrey.
Have fun with it.
Back to the Grinch, he described the whole Zen state he was in as so, like, transcendent that you could hit him over the head with a baseball bat and he would turn over to you and he would go, "Hi, how are you?"
For a Ron Howard movie. A Ron Howard film.
Well, here he goes.
Not even
Here you
Hitchcock. You're doing Ron Howard, buddy. Ron Howard, like, bless his heart. Ron Howard is the most, like, yeah, that was pretty good guy I can think of, like.
And another example of method acting, which thankfully he did not take this turn. So you know how? So obviously we know about Trainspotting, how Ewan McGregor had to lose a lot of weight to look like a heroin addict. One of the things that he also mentioned in interviews was like, yeah, I considered trying heroin, and I'm like, no,
That's stupid.
No.
that's stupid.
Like, if I could have her aside for a moment, is it mean to say that another part of the fun of this is lighting the proverbial match and seeing the fuse dwindle on you?
Yeah. No, the best we're gonna tie it back to him because we always have to. The best method actor is Nicolas Cage because he realizes when he goes too far and he apologizes and he also makes sure not to go too far. Like, I saw from an interview an actress said like she loved working with Nicolas Cage because like someone said, "Hey, do this," and it was just like the audition thing, and he was like, "No, I'm not gonna do that."
Yeah, because he gets comfort zones.
Yeah.
Chris Pratt.
Yeah, like Cage understands when he goes too far, and he understands he can be weird, and he is very like cautious about that to not go too far. There's a bit where he felt really bad while filming Vampire's Kiss because like, you know, there's the scene where he eats the roach, except, and this is the most bizarre Hollywood story I've ever heard. He heard someone freak out and scream because that was a trained roach. It was a trained roach, which
it was someone's pet.
Like, someone trained a roach for films, and I didn't know that you could train a roach.
Oh, that's far from the most bizarre insect-related thing. Because I found out after we filmed the Near Dark episode.
Yeah.
You know that mosquito that lands on...
Was that a trained mosquito?
More than that. It was bred and grown by Catherine Bigelow for that shot.
I hate mosquitoes. Why would you do that?
I don't even like mosquitoes, but why would you raise and like breed and like teach a thing to murder it? It's a mosquito and fuck mosquitoes, but even that is like, oh my god.
Well, yeah, no joke. I looked that up.
No wonder she was married to James Cameron. That guy's a monster too.
No wonder if she divorced James Cameron and then stole his Oscar.
Yeah.
I mean,
because James Cameron literally was like, people were like, "Hey James, I think this scene in Titanic is dangerous. That's kind of like looking like it might shock and kill us." "Nah, you're fine. It's okay. You're gonna be good."
my boy Stanley just did that a couple years ago.
And what's amazing is somebody literally had to stop the scene and be like, "Hey, no, someone's gonna die if we continue to do this." And he was like, "Oh, okay."
Like, I just want to go on a tangent here. Like, I'm creating a lot of audio stuff, and I like to be in the same room with my actors. Daulton can attest to this.
Yeah,
and
understandable. Everyone works best in acting when they can play off the reactions of others.
like, and I like to be like, okay, try even more into it. You're on a good angle, but I don't want to hurt them.
No.
Like, there are so many people out here. I can say that I love Stanley Kubrick's movies, and
Stanley Kubrick, fuck Alfred Hitchcock.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
can enjoy his movies and say fuck him.
Yeah.
Like, and then you get all the people who enjoy the movies like I do, and be like, hey, but come on, like, fuck you,
No.
come on.
No.
What are you, nuts?
Like, fuck John Landis. How does John Landis get work? How do people still ask John Landis, hey, John Landis, you want to be in a spot on our interview thing? Like, if I had John Landis's contact, I would just call him up to be like, hey, you should be in prison. Just wanted to say that real quick. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I'd like to apologize. I'm not normally this potty mouth, but like, you can enjoy a movie and also take a step back and say they should never do this process again.
Yeah, like, fuck everyone who's ever defended Roman Polanski. What is wrong with
God.
you?
Oh god, like, can we just say that? Because like, I feel like that's pretty. Let me correct myself. That should be self-explanatory.
Yeah.
It should be.
It should
But
be.
we live in a world where apparently it can't be self-explanatory. There's got to be extenuating angles to this monster.
Yeah, no.
I mean, some people still work with Woody Allen, so.
Yeah, it's like, people will defend certain people out there in the industry, and it's just like, no. Like, for God's sakes, nobody, like, we're getting better with this. I didn't see people rushing out to defend Harvey Weinstein, you know?
Yeah.
Thank Christ.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Getting back
To the movie.
yes, which is somehow a lighter subject. Jesus Christ. The performances are great. Jim Carrey gives, like I said, I'm not used to seeing him perform genuine anger that isn't for comedy's sake. Like, even in the Truman Show, his moments of lost composure are played for laughs. It's
Yeah,
like
it's-
I'm being spontaneous.
It's like a cosmic joke, because
What?
he literally is a cosmic joke, and that's part of the humor. Is it's like, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but I am.
But here, he's got a subdued, like, tranquil anger to him, like when he's confronting Clementine about the car, or talking to some of the doctors, or seeing what Elijah Wood's trying to pull with his girl.
I'm so confused, by the way, why Jim Carrey keeps doing this thing where he keeps going, hey, I have to prove I'm a serious actor. I'm like, dude, you did multiple times, and like,
The Truman Show.
yeah, and he did that thing a few years ago where he tried to make some sort of like cop movie or like detective movie where he was like, you know, like a haunted detective, and I'm like, dude, that's what every actor does nowadays when they want to go, nah, I can do serious work. Oh yeah, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna play a detective that's haunted by the memories of something that they were involved in, and I'm like, oh, like every actor does?
You should just do what Adam Sandler does and just, like, play the flawed everyman or the total jackass, as is the case with Uncut Gems.
You see, Sandler and Bill Murray understood the best way to get audiences to treat them as a serious actor, which is, I'm going to play a deconstruction of the way people see me as an actor or as characters.
But getting to... Sorry.
Uncut Gems works as a film if you're familiar with Adam Sandler's filmography. Because, like, you do root for Howard despite the fact that you shouldn't be, because it's Adam Sandler, and Adam Sandler is a likable person. He's a very likable figure, you know?
And he also plays a guy who digs himself deeper.
Yeah. And, like, you like, there's, like, a subconscious need to root for him because you're used to rooting for him.
Yeah. But
Or,
getting to the other actors...
Bill Murray and Lost in Translation, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I apologize, Dalton, but
Yeah.
there are a lot of good performances in this. Like you said, David Cross is great.
Carrey, Kate Winslet.
Oh,
who
yes.
Richie mentioned that at the beginning of the movie that her American accent has gotten much better over the years. Especially since doing Titanic. because when she did Titanic, she was still fairly young, like in her early 20s, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously this was done like 7 years later. But her American accent is much better in this than it is in Titanic. And from what I've heard, I haven't seen Mayor of Easttown, but I've heard that her Philadelphia accent is very good in that, so that's something I'll have to check out.
I gotta see that too. But my first exposure to this movie before I watched the full thing in high school was earlier, even in high school, was a film buff buddy of mine in the chorus playing clips of Titanic saying, okay, this is her American accent back then. Now here it is, but not sucking. And just show the scene on the train in the very beginning. I'm like, I'm gonna watch the rest of this. And then cue me struggling to pick up the shattered pieces of my heart.
And an interesting thing is that, about Kate Winslet in this movie and about the characters as a whole is, as we mentioned earlier, Kate Winslet's character is a deconstruction of the manic pixie dream girl trope. And, it's very obvious throughout the movie, because when you first meet her, you're thinking like, oh god, this girl's obnoxious, she won't shut up. But as the movie goes on, you're like, okay, yeah, she's definitely a flawed character, as all the other characters in this movie are. No one is perfect, and no one is meant to be perfect. They're all flawed in their own way, shape, and form.
And as with most people who are annoying people with their demeanors, she is putting on the biggest front of a lifetime.
Yeah, because it's very obvious throughout the movie, yeah, she's very likely an alcoholic. Most scenes where you see her, she's drinking.
And there's even a subtler thing that I like where Joel goes back to have a drink and there's way less whiskey than you would expect because it's Clementine he's sharing a room with.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to mention is outside of the acting, we did mention the editing earlier. Can we talk about cinematography?
Yes, indeed.
We did.
Well, we did.
Yeah.
We did. Sorry.
Well,
Sorry.
But
Yeah, I'm a nerd for cinematography. I could talk about it all day.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else we can talk about. Besides, we did mention how there is a little bit of use of Whedon speak, but when we were watching the movie, but it does work really well in this because they're meant to be normal human people and not. But there are also scenes where they're speaking poetically,
and but they're not slaves to
Whedon
the ham-fist. And they're not slaves to the ham-fisted delivery of the themes, which is why I hate Whedon's writing style so much, because his character...
actual poetic writing, and people are allowed to have moments where they actually act
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah.
And don't immediately have to, like, diffuse it with a joke.
Like, it's like a light switch for his characters, where it's like, okay, time to be a slave to the plot now. No, that's not how it is.
Yeah, it's part of why, and sorry guys, we're gonna get the hordes after us. It's part of why most of the Marvel movies after Avengers have started to suck so bad, is because like the Whedon has infested them, where like every film has to diffuse a serious moment with Whedon speak, and it's just
Or with
like
a joke or something.
and it's just like can we have moments for impact to work?
James Gunn knows how to do it.
Yeah, James Gunn knows how to do it. But then we have stuff even like, or just like, oh, we're serious, but we're not gonna commit. Like, I don't even care. It's spoilers for Marvel shit. Who cares? The fact that
We're dead.
We're dead.
Who cares? Fuck them. You have the biggest film franchise in the universe, and you're always gonna get catered to. Just shut up.
This is why we don't get sponsors, Daulton.
I don't care.
You did this.
Shut up. And like, oh, WandaVision. We're going to make something interesting with the franchise and do something like, deconstructive and interesting. And it's going to turn into Marvel cape laser bullshit at the end, because we can't just have a serious story where someone explores grief through a coping mechanism that helped them through a tough time. No, we have to keep in the goofy, oh, you didn't think that was actually what's going on. No, there's actually a villain here. Ha ha ha. And it's like, why? Why did that have to be the thing? Why couldn't we actually have an exploration? Why do the modern Marvel Spider-Man movies all have to be so quippy and jokey? Why don't we have the moments of, like, the haunting anguish that is the life of Peter Parker? Because Peter Parker's life sucks! It's supposed to! That's a big theme of Spider-Man.
There's no moments of reflection.
But these new movies just keep handing Peter shit. And, like, whenever he's sad, it's just like, oh, don't feel too bad, Spider-Man. Your dad, Tony Stark, is going to give you more tools and gadgets and make you feel like a special little boy.
Well, saw how that worked out.
Yeah.
I mean...
Spoiler alert, Tony Stark's dead.
And they have to keep reminding us Tony Stark's dead. It's like, yeah, we know. You
We've seen
established
Endgame.
that pretty clearly.
We've seen Endgame.
Our run after this episode is going to be like 3 episodes long.
I don't care. I don't care.
Dalton, I just want to say, too, like...
Our 20 listeners are going to go down by 18.
Good.
You're a jackass, but you're right.
Someone had to say it. I'm sick of it. It's like... this must be what it was like to live in the era when every film was a Western.
Yeah, this was like when John Ford ruled the world in the 50s.
And, like, every Western that was kind of interesting got, like, critically panned and, like, pushed out. Like, people hated Annie Get Your Gun when it came out, or, like, Johnny Guitar. Like, Johnny Guitar got, like, savaged by critics, and people despised it.
You know what? I'm with you. Fuck the public.
It's like, you hated Johnny Guitar? You hated Johnny Guitar? Come on, that was like one of the most interesting Westerns in existence.
Okay. If I don't kill you for chopping down our fan base, I will for the editing heavy lifting I'll have to do.
Like, all I'm saying is there's good films out there, and I'm sick of everyone out there who says, like, well, of course I'm going to watch the Marvel movies. I want to be part of the conversation. No, make your own conversations. Make people feel bad for not being on your level of the conversations. Because that's the way Marvel has dominated pop culture. That's the way Game of Thrones dominated the pop culture when it was around. It's just by making people feel like, oh, well, you gotta see this thing so you can be a part of the conversation. And it's like, you can start your own conversations. Just make people feel awkward.
Take a different angle.
Yeah, that's how I did it. Marvel fans do it all the time. We do that to them. Oh, you didn't see Ant-Man 3? Ant-Man Goes Ballistic? No. Did you see Last Night in Soho? I think it's the interesting new Edgar Wright film. I really like how he sort of deconstructed, like, idyllic looks at the 60s. And it's like, oh, no, I didn't. Oh, did you see Green Knight? Dev Patel was really good in that. Talk about an underrated actor. Dev Patel. You don't see him in Marvel stuff. I don't know who that is. Oh, that's a shame. You should.
You ever see The Heart of the Fall? R.J. Seiler plays a cocky, gunslinging gentleman who's basically like a young Ernie Hudson. Who is that? He's the one guy who knew how to play an autistic character, right? Oh, yeah.
Oh, did you see... Oh, hey, did you just see... can we talk about Nicolas Cage's really good turn into doing a lot of, like, hardcore acting again? Like, Willy's Wonderland, so good. You know, you got Pig, you got Mandy, Color Out of Space. He's really been going into it on, like, the horror and thriller front lately, on showing, like, how he can play roles that subvert the typical Nicolas Cage roles. No, I haven't seen... That's what you do. That's the key, people. Look for movies out there that sound interesting to you, that are coming out that people aren't talking about and aren't seeing. Go see them and then talk about them so that this shit goes away.
He's passionate right now, but he loves you. He does this because he loves you.
Exactly. Like, look, I love my dad. If Dad's listening to this, love you, Dad. He falls into that too. I made him get very interested in seeing The Lighthouse because of just talking about how good the film is. And that's the kind of stuff my dad would never usually watch.
If it makes you feel any better, Dalton, How often do I annoy everyone with obscure-ass Western movies?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, you can kind of, like, trick people into getting interested in things, almost, and then you can get them actually interested in things by doing that. It's like a little trick. I'm just gonna end it by saying that. And also, this movie's really good. You should go see it.
Before we actually end it, there was one thing I did want to mention, is this movie, the screenplay originally started out as a psychological thriller, and that shows throughout the film.
You say that like it never stayed a psychological thriller. Like,
Well, it did, but it leaned more towards sci-fi romance in certain aspects. But the psychological thriller aspects is when certain scenes in the film where people's faces are blurred or their faces are just gone, and that's like, what the fuck? Or the scene that had me go, was when you see Elijah Wood's eyelids upside down.
that's what got you. The one that got me was when what's the older guy's name? What's the actor?
David Cross?
No,
not
not
David
David Cross. The head doctor who played him.
Oh.
The head doctor.
I have no clue.
I don't know, but it's kind of dark in here, and I'm basically night blind, so give me a second.
When his face got all warped and leathery and featureless, I turned to Dalton. I'm like, oh my god, I figured out what this reminds me of. And he goes, what? And I'm like, Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was...
Definitely gonna see
Tom
that.
Wilkinson as the doctor.
Tom Wilkinson.
As Dr. Mirziak.
I feel like I've seen Tom Wilkinson in a lot of stuff.
He's one of those guys, you know. He's just got that.
One of those guys. He's one of those guys. It's just like, oh yeah.
He was in
that thing.
He was in a lot.
Exactly.
He's still in a lot.
Great.
He's old, but he's in a
Kirsten
lot.
Dunst is phenomenal.
She was good in that. Yeah, she was. Really
Great professional with crack showing in her facade. Like,
she's really not a great professional though.
well, I mean, I meant it's a great character. A great example of that archetype of the professional who clearly has a chip on her shoulder that you can make a decent shed out of.
Anyway, our lighting and our area is going as dark as the themes of this movie, so we will be leaving you once again. Killer score, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I really enjoyed this film, and I think you guys should go out and see it.
Loved it back then, love it now. Erin, thank you for taking me back. Even if it was heavy, I still really value this movie. Anyone who hasn't seen it, go see it, please. It's an emotional journey.
Yes, it's an emotional journey. I love this movie. I always wanted to introduce it to Daulton here for years now.
Yeah. Thank you for finally. I'm glad we finally got to get to it. You know?
Yeah. Maybe we can go to Montauk someday.
Sure.
Just take the train up to New York.
It'll be a couple weeks due to breaks in our schedule relating to that aforementioned successful fundraiser.
When I was reading
And the craft show.
Yeah. When I was reading up on the things, I thought it was funny. I saw that people were saying, like, yeah, the train lines they show aren't accurate.
Of course you would look up the trains.
You.
I like trains. I like trains. Little known fact about me here on Killer Square. My co-hosts know this, but you might not. I like trains. Trains are cool.
He likes trains.
Trains are fun.
Speaking of trains, the one of your thought is so hard to trace sometimes. Anyway.
Take a few hits to the head or have ADHD and you'll get the experience.
I got hit in the head with a hammer while filming once.
I'm on the spectrum. I guess we're on a similar wavelength. But
Kinda.
it'll be about 2 to 3 weeks before the next episode, but as I and Erin have had the last 2 picks, it naturally falls to Mr. Morrison here. Daulton, what do you got for us for the winter?
Alright, so cold is clearly a theme. We're going to keep going on with winter. By the time it's come up, when we do this again, Christmas will be around the corner. But, you know, Christmas movies are a little played out. You know, people do them all the time. And it was hard to find a Christmas movie that people here haven't seen that's a cult classic with a good score. And I thought, well, you know, what's a winter theme? Oh, wait, that film is technically set around New Year's, which will be coming up very soon. So, as a fun little experiment, we are going to be looking at the 1996 Doctor Who TV film, simply titled Doctor Who, and introducing it to Rich here, who has never watched an episode of Doctor Who and is only familiar with it through speak and
The two of us.
osmosis of pop culture. So we are going to see if the experiment of this film would work, and if someone who had never seen Doctor Who before would desire to watch a show based on this film.
I'm excited.